Welcome to Excel Heaven. This tutorial is the third in a series looking at the lookup functions in Excel. In earlier tutorials, we focused on VLOOKUP. In this tutorial, the focus will be on HLOOKUP. But as HLOOKUP is intrinsically the same as VLOOKUP in structure, I don't want to dwell on the parameters of the function, but would like to show you a model to pull together what we have learned to date. This model is an example of how a monthly management report might be developed. It compares expenditure against last year over a number of headings. For the sake of simplification, I have ignored a budget, which, in reality, would of course form an element of the report. The report compares the current month with the same month last year, and the year-to-date position also. The first thing to notice is the overall structure of the model. It is divided into 5 areas. An input section shown in yellow, a calculation section shown in green, a report section shown in blue, and what I call a reference section in red, the purpose for which we will come to later. In a live model, there would also be an information section, which would include a set of instructions on how to use the model and also a map of the model, so new users could learn to navigate the model. However, we won't get into that in this tutorial, but it is important to take on board that in a live environment these elements should be provided for. Let's begin with the report sheets. There are 2 reports based on the same data, one focused on accounts, the other on regional performance. Each shows current year and last year amounts and the variance in value and percentage terms. On the left, the current period, currently period 5, on the right, the year to date. One thing to note is the reference to the reporting period in the heading and the body of the reports. The source of the information feeding the reports come from the yellow input sheets, one for each year. Looking at the sheet for 2013, cell formatting is used to distinguish headers, normal cells, inputs, and calculated cells. The sheet will be protected to avoid the inadvertent changing of the structure, leaving only the input cells available for change. You can see that the total expenditure for each month for each region is keyed into the input cells. The offset column is used to help identify the row index numbers used as offsets in the HLOOKUP functions on other sheets. Looking at the 2014 sheet, you will recall from the report sheet that period 5 was the last reported, and I have just input details for period 6. One of the fundamentals of best practice is to keep outputs away from inputs, and the inclusion of the calculation sheets provide a bridge between the two. The other advantage is that both report sheets and calculation sheets can be protected, again for security. For the sake of the tutorial, however, protection is off, as I need to show you the functions on the sheets. There are 2 calculation sheets, one for the current year and one for the last year. The purpose of these sheets is to pull in the information from the appropriate input sheets based on their current reporting period. Before going any further, I guess I should introduce you to the reference sheet. The reference sheet contains 3 named ranges: current period, current year, and a calendar. The current period, currently set at 5, drives the model as we shall see. But let's go to the last year sheet. As mentioned earlier, the calculation sheet provides a bridge between the inputs and the outputs. Taking cell F4 as an example, the first thing it does is to check whether a figure for the period should be included or not. This it does by checking if the period in the header is less than or equal to the current period, as defined by the reference sheet. This, you will recall, is 5, so for this column the condition is true. It therefore looks at the HLOOKUP. The lookup value is the column period, here 1. You will notice that the row reference is absolute, so that as the function is copied down, each cell will look at row 3. However, as it is copied across the table, the column reference will change. The table array is looking at sheet 2013, cell C3 to R20. This time the whole reference is made absolute, so that it won't change as it is copied. The row index number uses the offset column in column A, so that each cell doesn't have to be changed as it is copied down. The column reference is made absolute this time. Finally, the range lookup is set to false, to ensure an exact match. Just going back to the if function for a moment. Should the column period be greater than the current period, a value of 0 is returned. One big advantage here is that as the function is copied either down or across, there is no need to change the contents of any cell. This significantly reduces the risk of introducing an error and makes the model much easier to follow and audit. There are a number of other advantages to this structure in a model. By having an input sheet for each year means that, as you go through the years, a great history is built up. You may not need this on a day-to-day basis, but occasionally a situation arises where you need to look at a long time frame, perhaps for a particular item. In addition, as you roll over the year, it is easy to insert a new sheet for the new year and update the reference on the current and last year's sheets. For example, in 2013, CY would take the data from the 2013 sheet and LY from the 2012 sheet. As you move into 2014, all you need to do is copy the 2013 to a 2014 sheet and clear down the balances. On the LY sheet, select the balances and do a search and replace 2012 with 2013. On the CY sheet, replace 2013 with 2014, and on the reference sheet, update the current year to 2014. Let's move on to the cost heading report. First of all, a period figure. Let's look at C9. Again, a Hlookup is used. The lookup value is the range current period on the reference sheet, currently set to 5. The table array is the range CY, and the row index number is picked up from the offset column, in this case 2. And finally, the range lookup is set to false. This can then be copied to cell D9, and the only change required is to change CY to LY to pick up last year's figure. I know I'm going overboard, but I'm even using the same function to pick up the headings, changing the current period to region or account name as appropriate. The variance is a straight calculation. The functions can be copied down to the other rows. I am using the subtotal function for the account totals and the grand total. If you are unfamiliar with this function, please see the dedicated tutorials on it. I can copy the period functions over to the year to date, and the only change is to replace current period with total. There are a few added subtleties to this sheet. At the bottom of the sheet, I've included a cross-check to the CY and LY sheets. This is to ensure that the totals calculated in the report are the same as the source information. Also, if you look at the headers, you will notice that the current period and date are included. Rather than going in each month and editing the text, the cell contains a mix of text and functions, including a VLOOKUP on the calendar to automatically update as the current period changes. Now for the regional report. You can see that it's pretty much the same, except the sequence in the offset column is changed, but the functions remain the same. This again shows the benefits of using a flexible structure. You will recall that on the 2014 sheet, I had updated the period 6 figure, but not the named range current period, so let's do that. Using the name box to select current period, I can now change that to 6. Both the CY and LY sheets update, and on the report sheets, not only the figures update, but the headers update as well. I know the initial setup may appear complicated, but in reality it is not, as it is mainly a series of simple Hlookups, and the monthly updating is simplicity itself. In addition, say you were asked for a reprint of an earlier period, no problem, just change the current period and you are good to go. We have covered quite a lot in this tutorial, including an extensive look at the use of Hlookup. We also used VLOOKUP as part of a mixed text string. We applied range names to make reading the function easier, and we also employed the use of an offset column to allow us use a consistent function rather than having to edit individual cells. We use cell formatting to distinguish the purpose of cells and cross-checks to validate the integrity of the model. I hope you learned a lot from this and can apply its principles to your own requirements. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to Excel Heaven for other tutorials.